Roll back. Greetings to the family out there. Today is another discussion that we're going to focus on the African concept of justice. What is the African concept of justice? This is another important topic, subject matter, that we think that our people need to become aware of. We need to know because we've been living under what we call the so-called justice system.
So-called.
Yeah, of the Europeans. So it's important that black people begin to comprehend what our ancestors taught as justice. What is justice? What exactly does that mean from the perspective of Africans?
So to an original African, what is justice?
Yeah, and this is going based on what our ancestors taught in ancient Kemet, what we call Egypt today, and in Nuwaupu we say Mahmat. Yeah, and that's what we identify in Nuwaupu language as Egypt. So, very famous symbol for justice in Kemet or Mahmat is a symbol called Ma'at. So we'll put that symbol up so people can see it. Ma'at.
Now we're talking about the sister, the deity? We're talking the feather?
The female deity, Ma'at. So we'll put up what we drew as Nuwaupians. That you guys can see that image. We drew an image of a sister who represents Ma'at. But what is Ma'at? What did our ancestors teach? Now, also we'll put up the image of the judgment hall. There's a judgment hall, a scene of judgment where you're judged with the feather of Ma'at that weighs your heart. And this is to determine whether or not you go from this realm into the next realm, the realm of the Natharu. That's what the objective is. And so you're being judged. That's why they talk about judgment, because it's to judge your character, whether or not you go from the realm of the mortals into the realm of the immortals, the realm of the Natharu. So one thing I will suggest in listening to this video, to give some people some context, just go on Google and type in Ma'at. What is Ma'at? Who is Ma'at? The ancient deity in ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. And you can just Wikipedia and you can just read up on some of the principles. Now, of course, that's the interpretation of whoever put that up there, right?
Yeah, of course.
But we're going to give you a more detailed, more explicit interpretation exactly what Ma'at represents, what is judgment itself, how we judge, how we make decisions. So for instance, when you're dealing with judgment or you're dealing with Ma'at, we'll say, and let me just say this. You see these scales. In that picture we just talked about, the judgment scene, you have these scales where you're weighing something. You notice that in the European system, in the court system. So we'll show you the image of that. Because in the European court system, they've copied that. This concept of judgment has a female there. We'll show the image. You see that image with the female, and she's blinded. Basically, you have these scales. And what they're trying to say, the Europeans are saying justice is blind. It sure is blind for black people and black men. But again, they got that from us. So a lot of people realize that a lot of concepts and principles that we see in the Caucasian culture, European culture, they got it from us. That's why we always tell people, well, just look at the back of the dollar bill. You see the pyramid there, right? This is an Egyptian symbol.
You can see things copied from our culture.
Egyptian concepts, like when you go to Washington D.C., you have Abraham Lincoln carved like our ancestor Ramesses in ancient Mahmat.
Yeah, so sitting up on the throne.
Yeah, put that image of Abraham Lincoln right in Ramesses. Or obviously you have the obelisk,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
So you have the obelisk in Washington D.C. You have the one in New York City, right? So you see these taking principles from ancient Kemet. Of course, when the European takes one of our principles, it's not the same. They kind of alter it.
It's always a reinterpretation. They put their lack of flavor on it.
Yeah, it's an alteration of what the principle is. But what is Ma'at? what did our ancestors teach? Well, Ma'at, the objective of Ma'at is one primary objective, which is order. So this is the first principle of Ma'at, order. Order. The second principle of Ma'at is balance. That's why you see those scales. The point of trying to balance out the scales is so that you have order, which is the ultimate goal, is order. So you have to have things have to be balanced in order to have order. The third principle of Ma'at is judgment or justice. Justice or judgment. In order to have things balanced, you have to have justice. You can't have balance without justice. So that's the third principle.
And true
of
justice
Ma'at.
is properly judging things.
Justice comes from judgment.
Gotcha.
The fourth principle of Ma'at is righteousness. Righteousness. What is righteousness? Well, righteousness just means to be right, to make the right decisions. So, for instance, in order to be a judge, to garnish justice, you have to be righteous. You have to be able to make the right decisions.
So righteousness isn't, where most people would believe you got to be holy, you have to be, without flaw, without mistakes. That's how most people use it.
Well, yeah, that's the religious connotation that they put with it, but they kind of twisted. Religious people twisted it because righteousness is it's explained through a religious dogma, through Christianity, but it's to have the right information, the right knowledge, as Hosea chapter 4 verse 6 explains, that we suffer because of a lack of knowledge, this lack of righteousness. When you read the book of Proverbs, in Proverbs it goes explicitly into this concept of righteousness. If you read Proverbs chapter 11, it deals with it in detail. So I do recommend it. And actually, I recommend the whole book of Proverbs because it kind of goes into what is righteousness and justice and wisdom. Because wisdom and righteousness goes hand in hand.
Okay, and that's to have the right information.
It's about having the right information to make the decision. So now let's recap. So in our culture, we have 4 principles in order to, when you were dealing with justice, right? Well, we don't say justice in our culture. I'm only using that simply because we're speaking to English-speaking people. We said Ma'at. Because Ma'at represented 4 principles. It's not just justice, that's just one of the 4. Right? So the 4 principles is order, balance, justice, and righteousness. You have to have 4. All 4 of those principles. The whole point of it, the whole objective is order, because everyone wants a life of order.
That's nature, right? We talked about
everyone wants a life of order, because with order comes harmony and peace. But you can't have harmony and peace unless you have order. You can't have order unless you have balance. You can't have balance unless you have justice. And you can't have justice unless you have righteousness. Okay? So how do you have righteousness? What does it mean to be right? And so righteousness is being able to make the right decisions. What are the right decisions? Exactly what is that? Well, in order to make the right decisions, you have to have knowledge of what our ancestors taught, nature. All decisions are based on your knowledge of nature, or what we teach, natural nature. You have to understand the laws and principles and rules of natural nature. And this is how you make your decisions.
How does that make one right?
Well, we're going to go into that. So, the laws of nature are infinite, okay? When you look at our ancient ancestors and how they made decisions, going back to ancient Maghreb, Egypt, our ancestors always focused on being in harmony and in tune with nature, right? So this is going from Egypt into the Sudan, because when you look into in Egypt and the Sudan really is one and the same. Although they teach us that, they're 2 separate entities. Excuse me. They're one and the same culture, same exact culture. So a lot of black people were saying, these black Americans are always talking about this Egypt. Yeah, I know Egyptians. Yeah, but we are African, and so when you look at the Sudanese, what they call the Nubians, these are black Africans, right? So black people in America comes from these same peoples who from that time period, going back to ancient Egypt, spread throughout the whole continent. And that's just a quick synopsis on that. But here's my point: it's the same culture, right? Our ancestors, even to this day, if you look at indigenous Africans who still focus on the indigenous cultures in Africa, from the Dogons to some of the Zulu to different tribes, even the Mosi tribe, I think, on the west coast of Africa, you still see indigenous concepts, and those indigenous practices focused on nature, being aware of natural nature.
A desert tribe called the Dogon, isolated in the African wilderness, may have identified a star invisible to the unaided eye. How is this possible? How could the Dogon possess this sophisticated astronomical information? Approximately 200,000 Dogon live in 300 villages scattered through their land. Throughout most of Africa, the simple melodies of the shepherds' flutes reflect the unchanging pattern of village life. On the surface, there is little to separate the Dogon from countless other tribes. What makes the Dogon different is a unique social harmony maintained by strong tradition. Among these people, murder, theft, and suicide is all but unknown. Greed is rare. Disputes are settled by debate in open forum. A goat has broken down a neighbor's wall and damaged his crops. The farmer demands repayment. The goat's owner insists it is the farmer's fault. He should have built a better wall. The elders decide that indeed the wall should be stronger, that both men should rebuild it and replant the crop. Millet beer marks the settlement. The Dogon believe in a perfectly ordered existence. They believe they are a part of something much greater than themselves. That each task, however menial, reaffirms their integral connection with the rhythm of the universe. In myths and symbols, the Dogon link the lowly with the lofty, the known with the unknown. All human activity is inscribed from the origin of man to the mystery of death. The spinning and weaving of cotton describes the Dogon myth of creation. Each strand by itself is of little importance, but united by a guiding intelligence, they become an ordered fabric. Planting, harvesting, the winnowing of grain from chaff, each act of Dogon life has a practical and a spiritual value.
Know that when you study the Patais, the Twa, the little ones that live in the little ones that live in the Congo. Okay. They still are trying to be in tune and in harmony with nature, which is why they live in the forest. So this is something that was innate within our particular culture, right?
I wish to tell you something. I wish to tell you something that happened here. about 10 years ago, we arrived in this place called Kurumane or Kudumane, the place of the antelopes, of the kudu antelopes. I was here with my wife, Virginia here. Virginia is the brains of the hospital that you saw being built. Virginia is a ngaka, a sangoma, but she is more. Virginia is a qualified nurse who worked in a hospital for many years. Virginia also is an unusual person, not because she is my wife. It is true. Virginia is a woman of Bushman blood. You can see by her complexion, her skin is yellowish. She is a descendant of the Barwa people, the Bushmen who are the oldest human beings in Africa. Virginia is of the Botswana nation. She not only is a sangoma, a shamaness, a nurse also, a senior hospital nurse. She stands between two worlds, the world of Africa and the world of Europe. When we came here, all this green was not there. The land was exactly like this. Dust. There were none of these things. There was none of this grass. We built our home here, but we were faced with a problem, a very serious problem. There was very little water available in this place. You could see far into the distance over a whole sea of red dust. And then we had to build this place, this clinic that you see, that one over there. And Virginia found that in order to build this place, we needed a lot of water. And so I remember when we hired a drilling man, a white man and his black employees to look for water here. And the white man came and he started drilling over there. That tree, that green tree behind this Rondavel house was not there. The white man put his machine there. He said that he would find water using his European instruments. He drilled for hours with his black squad of men. Nothing came out except a lot of white dust. And then Virginia said to me, Mutwa, I know that there is water in this place, and you know that my mother taught me how to seek water. Bushmen people are great water finders. That is why they are used as slaves in countries like Botswana and Angola. Bushmen are capable of finding water deep underground in places such as the Kalahari Desert and other deserts in Africa. For this, they are treated in those countries as less than human. For this, they are virtual slaves to black masters in black-ruled countries. This is a fact of Africa which should not be hidden from the West. Virginia said to me, Mutwa, the white man has failed to find water, but I'm going to ask him to change the position of his machine. At first, the white man was very angry. He was not going to listen to a creature he thought was a savage from the bush. He saw Virginia's sacred locks of hair, and he said she was just an animal. But his black men argued with him and asked him, listen, Bas, to the Ngaka, listen to the Sangoma woman of the long hair. And the white man in the end had to agree. And Virginia walked from there. These fences were not there yet. She walked from there to here. She walked barefoot. And there, where this garage now stands, Virginia found water. She found it some 30 feet underground. And she told me that we have to pay the white man more because he has got to change his position. And after the white man and his black squad had drilled there where Virginia indicated, this water came out. This water gushed out of the ground, and immediately pipes were put to bring the water to here. Now, Africa is a strange country. Africa is an unusual place. Who was the great man in ancient Europe who said, ex Africa semper aliquid novi? I don't know. But always out of Africa there is something new. In Africa, 2 plus 2 does not necessarily make 4. When the water came out of the ground and this tap was installed, our neighbors, some of them were quite angry. They said, this is witchcraft. How can this woman have found water where for generations there was none? And they wanted to ban her as a witch. But wiser men and women interceded, and Virginia's life was spared. And today, people come here with wheelbarrows and containers to get water from the home of the woman that they wanted to burn to death.
be righteous is to be able to make the right decisions based on natural nature, in harmony with nature. In order to do that, you have to understand the laws of nature. So, as I said before, the laws of nature they're infinite, but there are some primary laws that have tremendous impact on human beings and our behavior and how we should conduct ourselves. So, for instance, I'll go into 9 basic laws, and I'll try to explain 4 of them and how our ignorance of those particular laws are affecting us. Okay?
Okay.
So let's say the first 9, and we'll put them up so people can see. The first law of nature, first absolute law of nature, is the law of preservation of self and kind. Preservation of self and kind. This is the first law, or what we call in Nuwaupu the first rule of natural nature. Preservation of self and kind. Now, if you notice, in the European culture, they teach the first law of nature is self-preservation.
Yeah, self-preservation. Preservation of the self, period.
Yeah, self-preservation. That has nothing to do with us. Because that's something that deals with the individual. Our culture, we identify that natural nature just doesn't deal with the individual, but it deals with the whole. So it's preservation of self and kind.
When you say the whole, we're talking the whole
of species.
Gotcha.
So that's every species operate in this pretty much fashion. Okay. So the second law of nature that has a huge impact on existence in species is the law of the opposites. The law of the opposites. This is in the natural law that is all pervasive. The third law of nature is the law of peace and love. The energy is an energy of peace and love, right? The fourth law of nature that has a huge impact on people is the law of pain and pleasure. The law of pain and pleasure, that's number 4. Then we have the fifth law of nature. Fifth law of nature that has an impact on humans is the law of attraction and repulsion. Attraction and repulsion. The fifth law of nature. Then the sixth law of nature that has an impact on humans is the law of correspondence. The law of correspondence. As we taught in ancient Kemet, as above, so below.
It's correspondence.
The law of correspondence. So that's number 6, right? Seventh law of nature that has a huge impact on people is the law of rhythm. The law of rhythm. Rhythm. There's a motion, a rhythm. They say black people, we have a natural rhythm.
Dance all the time, dance natural.
Rhythm. So everything has a rhythm, a frequency, a motion, a vibration. So that's number 7. Number 8. The 8th law of nature that has a huge impact on human beings is the law of vibration. Everything in existence vibrates. Science has proven that everything in existence is made of elements, atoms. And atoms are made of protons, electrons, and neutrons. And they now know that these particles within an atom are always moving. So even a rock that appears to be still, it's still moving. It's just that our senses, human senses, we can't pick up its vibration, but everything vibrates. So that's number 8. And then number 9, the law of melanin. The law of melanin. It's what predominates the black woman and the black man's body. Melanin, right? That is a substance. It's a part of a natural process, a law. It has a essence to it. Now, we did videos before in talking about the laws of nature, and I'll just recap real quick. Well, what is exactly is a law of nature? I think we addressed that in a couple of videos. We did a video, what is the origin of the black woman and the black man, where we talked about it. So I do recommend people definitely looking at that particular video. We also addressed it in
probably in the cycles of nature.
The cycles of nature and who is the Almighty.
Okay.
right?
Who is Almighty and is he the creator?
Is he the creator? So I definitely recommend people looking at those particular videos, because we do go into exactly what is law of nature. And I don't know if I want to spend time to do it in this particular video, because I want to focus on ma'at. But in order to explain the principle of ma'at, the concept of justice, you have to have this basic background first. So I had to give you all this information. So now, this is about being righteous. Being righteous is able to make the right decisions in nature. So now, when you look at the first law of nature, right? The first law of nature is preservation of self and kind. So what does that mean? That means that I couldn't exist. We all know this. If I couldn't exist unless my mother and father existed. They couldn't exist unless their parents existed. And so on and so on and so on and so forth. This is why that law exists. Because there is no self-created species that only exists on its own within absolute nature. It's always generations. It talks about that in the Bible, right? Something is created after its kind. Okay? So that's why it says it's not just preservation of yourself, it's preservation of yourself and your kind, because you couldn't exist without your parents.
Yeah. If the kind wasn't here, you couldn't be here.
You couldn't exist. Exactly. What you call your kindred. So you exist because of them. So you don't have an obligation just to preserve yourself in nature, but you have an obligation to preserve your kind and your prodigy, those that come from you, your own children, because they couldn't exist without you existing.
Yeah, they call that extinction. When the kind stopped existing, it's extinction for the species.
So in order to exist, in order for you to exist, your family had to exist, your parents, and in order for you to have continued existence, your prodigy, your offspring has to exist, so that we can be continuous. Because if you didn't have that, you would go extinct.
That's right.
You would cease to exist. So that's why it's the first law in absolute nature. Not only that, what would exist if you didn't exist?
What would exist?
What would exist? And I ask everyone to ask themselves that question. What would exist if you, the individual, did not exist? Answer to that is nothing. Nothing exists to you if you didn't exist. So, in order for existence to have purpose and existence to have meaning, you have to exist. Because if you didn't exist, nothing matters to you, that is. So that's why that's the first absolute law. You have to comprehend that. Not only do you have to comprehend your existence, but you have to comprehend the existence of your species, your parents, and your prodigy. Because you couldn't exist if they didn't exist. And you can't have continued existence if you don't reproduce. So we go back to law number 1, preservation of self and kind. So to be righteous is to make decisions not selfish based, but group based. We have to learn to make decisions based on the benefit of the group, the whole. Something Dr. Spock, Dad always likes to talk about.
Yeah, he does say that. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Always about the whole, the benefit of the whole, not the part. This is not about the part. Our people in this culture, one of the reasons why we're suffering is because we're making decisions based on self. Because this culture says it's about self-preservation. Do for yourself. I got mine, you get yours. That's not African. We all eat. We all work as a collective whole for the benefit of the whole, not the benefit of the individual. That's the objective. So you have to be cognizant of law number 1. A lot of our suffering is due to our ignorance of law number 1, because everybody's trying to do for self. And the way it's set up here in the United States, everybody has their own little personal family, husband, wife, children, and that's it. In fact, we live in a society in the United States that cut off connection to the elders, where they put elders in old folks' home. They have nothing for the elders. It's like insane. Or in this culture also, like we live in Metro Atlanta, and they have in Metro Atlanta all these subdivisions. And they build all these subdivisions, all these homes, beautiful homes, with no areas for children and families to congregate. So now we have all these people living in these $250,000 homes and these our homes are like 3 stories, and we got like 2,500 square feet to 4,000 square feet homes, and everyone stays inside their house. No one interacts with their neighbor, literally. No one's connected.
Yeah, they're like foreigners.
Literally.
Yeah.
Right. No one's connected. This is a huge problem. We're cut off. We're supposed to work and live as one community. That's an African proverb, right? It takes what it said. It takes a village.
It's a village to raise a child.
So we understood this from an African point of view, but because we've been Europeanized and we think like the European, we don't understand that. That's why when they build these subdivisions and they put no facilities for the family and children and things like that, we don't say anything. Literally.
No bad eye, no blink.
We don't say anything because we've completely lost concept of what it means to gather as a whole. And so when this government, when it does something to an individual, like shoots Trayvon Martin or shoot Sandra Bland or Eric Garner, nothing happens because we're all individualized. We don't exist as a group, as a body. And from an African perspective, that's not African. We always worked as a body. So my point is this. Because we're violating this natural law, we're paying a heavy price for that, for our ignorance of this particular principle. It's a natural law. There's no escaping it. There is no exceptions to the laws of nature. These laws are binding. There's no getting around it. But until we become more cognizant of that, we're going to deal with a lot of challenges and a lot of suffering. That's what we're arguing. Second law of nature is the law of opposites. The law of opposites teaches us that everything in nature has an opposition to itself. For instance, if something's up, by nature you have down. If something's hot, by nature you have cold. If you go into the east, there's a west. If there's a north, there's a south, right? There's black, then there's white. And so everything in nature operates in this principle of opposites. Opposites also deal with opposing forces. So us as black people have a natural opposition. For instance, the natural opposition to the black man is the black woman.
Okay.
Right? The natural opposition to the black woman is the black man. And principle in nature is opposites attract. Opposites attract. But then there's also a thing called extreme opposites. Right? Now, meaning there's opposites that there's things that are good for you and things that are not good for you. Your ignorance to that reality can cause you pleasure or can cause you pain. So for instance, black people's ignorance to understanding there is opposites even in human species between the races of people, right? You have the black race, the Caucasian race. You hear us talk about this in our different videos. You have the Asiatic races. You have the Orientals and the Hindus, right? They're opposites to black. We're opposite to them. They have a natural way in how they live versus us have a natural way how we live. When you lose knowledge of the opposites, like black people are today, where they try to, and
I was going to say that it made me think about the movie with Will Smith, with Hancock. His extreme opposite was, the Caucasian lady.
Right.
The closer he got to her, the weaker he got. They almost got killed.
That's true. The other thing I was going to say is that ignorance to your opposites, the problem with that is that amalgamation. Amalgamation. This is when two races of people live together. Eventually they begin to intermingle, intermix, marry each other, and have children, right? Amalgamation. What's the problem with that? Well, for one thing, if everyone did that, then we would cease to exist as a natural nature species, the black race, as well as the other races. What's the problem with that? Well, we did videos on this, and we're going to do more extensive videos on the races of nature by nature, right? Whatever nature creates by nature can't be undone artificially. I repeat that. Whatever nature creates by nature cannot be undone artificially. If you begin to tamper with something that was created by nature in an artificial manner, right, then nature will set things into motion to get rid of that species, and that species will time out. Now, I don't want to get into too much of that because that's in itself a very long extensiveness, but the law of the opposites is just that. It's an actual law. So it's important to know what is in opposition to yourself, what is agreeable to you, what is disagreeable to you. Ignorance to that will harm you, and it's hard. You can't make intelligent decisions if you don't know this. This is why we go back to only the righteous can judge, because if you're not able to make right decisions, right? If you're not able to make right decisions, the only way you're not able to make right decisions is because of the fact that you're ignorant to these certain laws and principles within natural nature. So we're stressing the importance why you have to comprehend these natural laws, because these natural laws have everything to do with decisions, your judgment that you're making, and that's how you determine someone who's righteous. So when we said law number 1, preservation of self and kind, you know that all your decisions should be family-based, nation-based, group-based for your race and your kind. When you see a body of people making decisions like black people doing, well, we don't care, it's this, Martin Luther King thing, judge a man by the content of their character, not their skin color, blah, blah, all that stuff. Yeah, that sounds good, but that's not realistic within nature. We have to be able to learn to judge each other within the group as a confront of our group, and we deal with other groups in that way. Not what America is, this whole melting pot amalgamation that, as you can see now, I don't know, we should be able to see by now, that doesn't work. All the suffering that black people's had, it doesn't work, and it's getting worse. And we'll do more videos trying to explain, because our people actually think it's getting better for them. It's not getting worse. The facts show you, when you look at the conditions of black people, it's getting worse. Really bad for us. Mentally now, because we're mentally getting slower and slower. And if you don't think that's true, go monitor the public school system in the United States, and you'll see our intelligence level is decreasing tremendously. So it's not getting better for us.
Americans are dumber than ever before. The average IQ of Westerners has dropped by a staggering 14 points over the last century. We now have attention spans less than that of goldfish. Our children are also becoming stupider. Since 2006, the average SAT score has fallen 20 points. In Japan, high school students are at the same educational level as Americans who hold 4-year college degrees. For 2 million years of evolution, our brains grew larger, but there's been a reversal. Our brains are now physically shrinking. The anecdotal evidence isn't that encouraging either. Take a look.
World War II. Ever hear of it?
No.
No, never heard of World War II.
No.
Who were the two teams in World War II?
George Bush versus Saddam, whatever his name is. I don't know.
How many world wars have there been?
3.
Can you tell me what democracy is?
No.
It's crap.
What kind of that?
Name one country in Europe.
I don't know.
You don't know? When the Founding Fathers signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776, what year did they sign the Declaration of Independence and break away from England to start America?
78. I don't know.
1978?
Yeah.
1978.
A country that starts with a U. Utopia.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
What do you think the TPP is?
TTP?
No, what is TTP?
The DPP?
The what?
TPP. I have no idea.
Nope. I have no idea what that is. I ain't got a clue. I have no idea.
I have no idea. The toilet paper products.
I'm being totally honest, I just don't care right now.
Do you know what the TPP is?
Nope.
What's TPP?
Toilet paper?
They're coming up with new ways to screw the people. Does that surprise you?
No.
Do you care?
Not really.
Why don't you bother to know about the trade?
I just don't care.
Who is Fidel Castro?
A singer?
You guys hear what the March Against Monsanto event?
Actually, no, we just kind of appeared here.
Do you know what it is?
No, we don't.
Do you know what Monsanto is?
Nope, not at all.
Have you heard about Monsanto?
No.
GMOs?
No.
You have any interest in it?
No.
I think they make carpet.
Carpet?
Carpet company.
Is that what? Is Monsanto makes carpet?
Sure.
I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as.
Oh, you are so dumb. You are really dumb, for real.
When the Founding Fathers signed the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, we declared independence from England.
Yeah.
What date did they sign the Declaration of Independence?
The date? I don't know.
What date was that?
That was like 19 something, like 1914, 1912, 1876. I don't know.
Okay, I'm a little bit mixed up over the Palestinians and the Israelis. Okay, which one is throwing the rocks?
How many sides does a triangle have?
Damn, 4.
There's no sides.
Which way?
What is Osama bin Laden most infamous for?
Osama
Yeah.
or Obama?
Osama.
I have no idea who Osama is. Obama, you should run for a third term because we need you.
Are you here voting for Obama's third term?
Yes, of course.
Obama third term!
What does the DC and Washington DC stand for?
Dominican Republic.
Washington Dominican Republic. The capital of America, what does that mean?
Washington, D.C., Washington, Obama. There you go.
Do you have a TV at home?
Yes, we do.
What does TV stand for?
Television viewing. That's all I know. TV, great TV.
Teleporting vortex.
There you go.
Teleporting vortex.
So law number 1, right, which is preservation of self and kind. Law number 2, which is the law of the opposites, right? That ignorance to the whole concept of opposites is hurting us. Law number 3, the law of peace and love. What exactly is the state of peace and love? We're ignorant to that. What we think is love is you meet the perfect woman of your life and you say, I love you, and you
get married and live happily ever after.
And what's the problem with that? The problem is that the love of your life, you coming home from work, hard day's worth of work, you go in your house, right? And we go to that movie, what's that movie? Precog.
Minority Report.
Minority Report. Okay. The guy comes home, right? Wife's in bed with some man.
Yep.
And what happens?
He tried to kill him. He tried to kill them both.
This is what love does.
Yeah.
This is what love does.
European love.
This is what love does. This concept of what they taught us what love is. Love, what they call love, is really attachment. what they call love and what we've been conditioned to think love is in this culture is really lust. Now that's a hard one.
It has a lot of conditions on it.
Yeah, that's a hard one because we have a different principle from an African perspective what love is and what peace is. Because our people don't even understand what peace is. Peace is being able to sit in a quiet room of darkness and blend with the forces and energies of absolute nature. That's the state of peace. Now, all you have to do is ask how many people actually meditate and put themselves in a state of darkness. Black people in large quantity. If we did a survey, what do you think we would get the percentages of how many of our people actually understand a state of peace?
Probably the same percentages of wealth that we have in this country. Half of 1%, half of 1%, maybe.
We don't understand what peace, the state of peace, and love, because they're inseparable. The state of love is the state of peace. The state of peace is the state of love. It's a peaceful energy. It is a tranquility. That's what love is about. Being in that tranquil state.
Saying love itself is an energy.
It's an energy.
It is a vibration.
It is a tranquil vibration. To be in harmony where there's no opposition. Because when you turn on the lights comes the chaos. So the opposite of the chaos is the darkness, which is the absence of light, which is, according to the Bible, that was the state of God. God existed in the darkness and he turned on the light. And with the light came the opposition, the chaos. We only see the problems, each individual, you only see the problems when you wake up into the world of this world of chaos. You turn on the news, all you hear is what? Chaos.
Yeah, people got problems, death and destruction.
Even in your house, so like, you got to deal with this at house. You hear the fire engines going, you hear the ambulance going, you hear the police sirens going, and
car screeching.
Every time you hear those sirens, you know it's what just happened. Something chaotic.
Chaotic, yeah. Fire or whatever it is.
And it's constant. There's very few places you can live in this country and you don't hear chaos. Even if you're living in the woods, if you have a TV and you turn it on, chaos. A radio, chaos. There's always an issue and always an opposition. You watching a movie, chaos. There's always an opposition. You listening to music, chaos. Talk about how my baby left me and they did me wrong and blah, blah. It's always this opposition. We've lost sight of what peace and love is. And we've been taught a concept of what peace and love. And that is not what it is. So again, how could you be righteous and you don't understand these natural law principles? So you're thinking love is, I meet the woman of my dreams and blah, 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 blah. And of course, that's a more intense conversation because people say, no, they're gonna, they got some people that is real love. And so all I'm trying to do is introduce our people into what our ancestors understood. The problems we're having here, what is the divorce rate in the United States if love is so real?
Like 85% or something like that. Them lawyers, divorce lawyers told us that's big business here. Yeah.
So what people, because everyone who got divorced, right? When they first met that partner,
they would say that's the love of their life, that's their soulmate, or whatever.
Love. Yeah. They thought they was in love, but yet and still, what happened?
Separation happens.
And for the individuals who don't leave, a lot of people are not happy in their relationships. They're not. So the concepts. How can you properly judge? How can you judge if you're not righteous? How can you be righteous if you're not making the right decisions? You can only make the right decisions if you understand these natural law principles that affect everything about you. This is our point. Ignorance to these natural law principles is what's causing us to make all these wacky decisions and why we live in a world of chaos. Because that's where we are right now. We're in a world of chaos. And the only reason why we're in this world of chaos is because of our ignorance to these natural law principles. We can't get to the world of order that we're talking about, this world of ma'at, because of the simple fact that you can't have ma'at, order, if you don't have balance, right? You can't have balance if you don't have justice. And you can't have justice if you don't have righteousness. And you can't have righteousness if you're ignorant to the natural laws in absolute nature that governs all of us. Because there are no exceptions to this. All of us are susceptible to these laws. And we have to make decisions based on them. Ignorance is no excuse. Caucasian knows that because he puts it in his man-made laws. Ignorance is no excuse. Well, ignorance to natural laws is no excuse. Meaning this, the law of gravity.
Yeah, you do the gravity test a lot. Yeah.
You get on top of a building, I don't care who you are, right? You can be ignorant all you want. You get on the Empire State Building and you walk off the Empire State Building, the law of gravity is going to take effect. And I guarantee you're going to fall. Unless you have some rocket, you know, some kind of special equipment that keeps you afloat. But every other regular human being is going to fall. The law of gravity is going to take effect.
Yeah, it won't happen like in the cartoons where you keep walking until you realize it.
No. And it doesn't care whether you are knowledge of it or not. It's going to take effect whether you want it to or not. These laws are binding. These laws are binding. So we did the law of love and peace. Law number 4, pain and pleasure. And this is one of the sad ones, because human beings, they violate this law like, woof.
Yeah, all day long.
Woof. And what I mean by that is this. And it's because of the culture we live in, European culture. Because Europeans, unfortunately, are completely ignorant to natural law. Europeans, for whatever weird reason, think they can conquer the laws of nature. They think they can override it somehow. You know, they this, whatever. You can't conquer that which you are made up of. If you're made up of the principles of nature, these elements, elemental forces, how can you conquer it? Every thought you have of nature is nature itself thinking. And remember, nature operates in opposites. So there's a law of growth and there's a law of decay. We talked about this on our other videos. When you see a species that only focus on chaos and decay, you know that's just the species. That species represents the principles of destruction in nature. And a species like that is destined to time out, to go extinct. Any species that behave like that within absolute nature. So that's a hint for all those who like this chaos lifestyle they call European culture. But anyway, let's keep it moving. Law number 4, pain and pleasure. That's what's driving the human being today. Human beings are doing everything in their life, right? Especially in the United States, to gain pleasure and doing everything in their life to avoid pain. Just about all our decisions, all your decisions out there, are based on you trying to either gain pleasure or avoid pain. For instance, 99% of all the things you eat, you're eating it because
it tastes good.
It gives you pleasure.
Yeah.
It's what you call taste good, because that's a belief system, right? It's for you to gain pleasure. Some people get pleasure from eating chicken all day. Other people get pleasure from eating macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Other people get pleasure from eating ice cream.
Or candy.
Right. But it's the desire for pleasure. Other people get pleasure from watching Empire. They can't wait till Empire comes on, right? Other people get pleasure. Most people get pleasure from making money. I mean, how many people don't want to be rich?
Yeah.
And why do you want to be rich? You want to be rich, right? So that you can have as much money to do what?
Get more stuff, get more pleasure.
To get stuff for the purpose of
pleasure. Yeah, I want this new car. I want to go on that vacation. I want that woman over there.
Everything you're doing is motivated by this desire to gain pleasure and avoid pain. People will go out their way to avoid pain. People do it every day. They go out their way to avoid pain. They don't want to deal with pain. That's why a lot of people don't like the work, because it's pain. Why do people exercise?
No.
They don't like, most people don't exercise. Why? Pain.
It hurts.
Do people want to diet?
No.
They don't want to go on diets, even though the doctor tells you it's good for you. But do you do it? No, because it causes you pain. This is a huge problem. People do all kinds of things to avoid pain.
Yeah. They say people don't go to the doctor, don't get checkups, check their whole self out. We do a lot of things trying to avoid pain.
To avoid pain.
We don't study the way we should. We don't read things because it's not fun.
That's right. A lot of people don't even want to watch this lecture because it's too painful. It's too painful.
Why you gotta say this so long? Why the video gotta take so long? Why you can't point to the exact portion of the video where we want to hear what we want to hear?
Yeah, pain. Because we want to be entertained. Literally, we live. That's what the entertainment business is all about. Creating pleasure for you all the time, because people do not want to deal with pain. They will do anything to look. I mean, just think about this. Black people know they're being oppressed in the United States.
Absolutely.
But the pain of fighting white people is too much to bear.
We don't even talk about it.
They don't want to touch that.
No.
They don't want to touch that because it's like, whoa.
They made that joke about that in barbershop too. When the brothers came in the shop and he was telling, they had the Black Panthers at the time coming like, we gonna fight, we gonna die. And he looked at him like he's crazy. He slammed the door on him. And he was like, nah, I ain't trying.
Same thing with I'm gonna get you sucker.
That's right. That's
the
right.
pro-black brother. Yeah. And when it's time for the revolution.
Yeah. So the brothers wasn't around. So the jobs came in and the brothers didn't want to fight no more.
That's pain.
Yeah.
Very few people want to be a Martin Luther King. Yeah. Because they don't want the pain that comes with persecution.
You talked about it with military training, with the Navy SEALs.
The whole Navy SEALs training is based on inflicting pain.
Yeah.
That's why, one, you have to volunteer. Because they already know that. You can't draft no one into that kind of training. Because most people, they already know it's going to quit. That's why I think they have a quit rate of like 80%.
Oh my goodness. That's serious.
It's only like 20% of the individuals who make it through that training. Because most people quit. It's too much pain.
It's the best of the best of the best.
It's just too much. And this is what's driving the human being. And here's the problem with that. When you base everything, all your decisions, and I'm asking you guys out here listening to this, analyze your decisions from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. Analyze what we call a self-audit in the decisions you're making, and see if or not your decisions are influenced by your desire for pleasure or your desire to avoid pain, why you don't do something. Analyze why you do it. Are you doing it because it's creating a sense of pleasure, or your desire to avoid a sense of pain? This is something I learned a long time ago from studying, talk about all the time, Anthony Robbins.
Yeah.
He had a book, and I recommend it. It's a really good book called Awaken the Giant Within. He focuses on that subject matter. What he doesn't tell you, though, what I'm telling you, that this concept of pain and pleasure, this is a natural law principle that our African ancestors taught. Because he thought he just came up with it somehow. He got an opinion. You ain't come up with that, my buddy. This is something that's old. There's nothing new to that concept. The law of pain and pleasure. But this is govern our everyday decisions.
We're way out of balance with that.
It creates a level of imbalancement because, listen, remember the law of the opposites. If you're having pleasure, pleasure must be offset by its opposition of pain. How do you do that? The purpose of making money is so that you can spend it, right?
Yeah.
That's the pleasure aspect of making money. But what's the pain aspect? Or that's the pleasure aspect of spending money. But what's the pain aspect when it comes to money?
You spend it, so you gotta get
the pain aspect. That's the pleasure.
Earning it. You have to work.
You have to work. So work is the pain aspect, right? Because most people don't want to work. If they had the option to be rich and just spend, right? They'll love that all day. But you do too much of that.
Oh, your money's gone.
Too much of anything, one, is not good. Okay? And so, because the law of the opposite say you have to balance out everything. Goes back to that principle, Ahmad, balance. Because what happens if you do too much of anything, you create an imbalance. If you eat candy and chips all day, every day, guess what it's going to create? An imbalance in the body called obesity. It may collapse your heart. You may collapse your lungs. Like you one of those people that smoke all darn day. Like what's that? They have that commercial.
The lady, they have the hole in it.
Yeah, that lady. She messed us up. Where I was watching the X-Men. Not the X-Men, the X-Files TV show. They got this guy called Mr. Smoke Man, the Smoke Man or something like that. And this guy's so addicted to smoking, he had smokes through his freaking neck.
Oh my goodness.
That's how much he had, because he couldn't smoke no more through his mouth.
So he smokes through his neck, okay.
That's how addicted he is. Because he created an imbalancement. You have to have balance. Without balance, right? This is the problem the Caucasian have in his justice system. That's why why we as black people are constantly complaining, because we said it's not justice, it's injustice because it's imbalance. The judges are sending black men to jail 3 times as much for the same issues that white men are going to jail. It creates an imbalancement in society. And so when you have one group of people who are bearing the burden of this imbalancement, we complain, we riot, we protest, we yell and scream, which is why white people are tired of listening to black people always complaining. Like, God damn it, y'all. Well, listen, white people, we're complaining because you're creating a whole system of imbalancement. You're never going to have peace. You're going to always have us knocking on your door talking about equal rights. We want protection under the law. We want this. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, exactly. We gotta be constantly cockroaches to them. Because you can't have peace when you create a system of imbalancement. It's impossible. You didn't have these problems. We didn't have these issues in Africa. Guys, in Africa, there were no prisons. Egypt, they had no prisons. Egypt, they had hospitals like that. We had no need for all these things. All this chaos we're dealing with, AIDS, gonorrhea, syphilis, high blood pressure, diabetes, the list goes on. We didn't have these kind of issues going on in mass quantities. No, don't get me wrong, we had issues in Africa, but not these issues. And all issues come from your ignorance. This is what I'm trying to show you. Your ignorance in natural law. You're not righteous. You don't know how to make right decisions. Right decisions are based on your knowledge of these natural law principles. There's no exceptions to this. We're all, as human beings, are subject to these principles in natural nature, is my point. That's my point of this whole discussion.
Talking about getting back to order.
Yes. And I just did 4 of the laws. 4. And I'm trying to show you, just based on those primary 4, how it impacts our ignorance to those laws are impacting our lives in such an adverse way. Excuse me. And the laws of nature are infinite. Like, we do a thing, and we're probably going to focus a particular discussion just on, like, I try to focus on 19 laws of nature that has the most impact on human beings, right? 19 laws of nature that has the most impact on human beings. But I try to do the primary 4 that is affecting human beings and our ignorance to those particular laws. And we overstood this in our culture. This is why in an African-based society we had a more harmonious culture, because we overstood that we should make decisions based on these natural law principles. In today's culture, we're completely ignorant to it. So in order to have justice, like I said before, which we call ma'at, things had to be in balance. Balance is the key, right? Balance is the key. Because when things are balanced, then you have order. When you have order, this is when you have that peace and tranquility going on. But you can't have that order, that peace without order. You can't have order without balance. You can't have balance without justice. You can't have justice without righteousness. Because only the righteous, those who are able to make right decisions based on natural law, when they do that, then their judgment is just. Their decisions is just. That's the point we're trying to get at. So if you have someone who's a judge and they're ignorant to natural law and they're just judging based on their emotions and their feelings and their belief systems. And this is why black people, again, are complaining, because you got a white judge with a white jury and they see a black man, right, who's accused of whatever, he's guilty. And that's just because they're racist.
Yeah.
And they've been taught that black people are inferior. They've been taught that black people are not intelligent. They've been taught that black people are lazy. They've been taught, so they see everything bad about you. So all of their decisions on how they're going to judge you is based on a biased one-sidedness. You can't get no justice in no system like that. It's impossible. It's impossible. The first problem is violation of law number 1. Preservation of self and kind. Every nation or every race of people need to be judging themselves. Now, the Caucasian says that in their constitution, right? Judge you by your peers. But what they should supposed to say, they need to reword that. Your peers is your race. Because what is your peers? Your peers are really the people who share your culture. That's really what your peers are. The people who share and identify with your culture. But here's the problem with that. Black people, yes, they are living Caucasian culture, but it's forced upon us. This is not our natural culture. It just isn't. This is why we are all up and roll, not up and roll, but we got excited on the Black Panther movie.
Yeah, that was like the first glimpse at what is our original culture.
Yeah, black people getting excited about African culture who ain't nothing African about them. Because they didn't even realize what they were missing. I'm serious, man. I had a sister, I worked with a sister, and she was saying, you know, she went to see the Black Panther with her children, her 2 daughters. You know, it's like, you know, everybody's saying, see it, it's a phenomenal movie, so black women will see it. So she said when she got to the movie with her daughter, you know, they was talking about, what they were saying was, everybody was saying, they going in the African garb. She's like, we ain't going in the African garb, right? So she gets to the movies. She sees people in the African garb, and they still thinking, black people are doing too much.
Okay.
She said, her daughter, by the end of the movie, and they leaving, why didn't we have on our African garb?
Oh, snap.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
Why didn't we have on the African garb?
It'll bring that out, right?
Something touched them. Something made them identify with their African culture.
It makes me think about that video we saw, the little clip. I want to say it was Jimmy Kimmel, where they had all the people thanking Chadwick on his show, and he popped out, and it was like some of them was in tears. Like, you know, if you just average, you know, any day talk to those people, they probably wouldn't be hyped about African culture. No. It's like that movie brought us to tears.
We don't realize that we're living adverse to our nature, and we're wondering why we're suffering. And it's bad even on white people, because it's like they're being forced to deal with us, basically, and they can't deal with us fair. They know they can't deal with us fair. They just can't, because what are you really asking them for them to suffer? Meaning, I gotta take from my house to give to your house. They ain't doing that. That's what the Republicans are. That's their whole platform. Yeah. That's what conservative is.
They're government handouts, stock.
Yeah, it's like, you know, we ain't trying to share all these government handouts to black people. We don't. Nah, this is for my family. We work for it. We did this, and black people cry saying, "We work too. We slaved." and we don't understand as black people. Yeah, we worked as honestly as servants and slaves here. When you're a slave, the intent is not to pay you.
Yeah, you don't have no entitlement to anything.
Yeah, we gotta get that.
That's what they're saying is, y'all were forced to work.
Yeah, like
we beat you and you ain't entitled to nothing.
Yeah, like what's up with us? Like we think they're supposed to give something back, and like we're still trying to take from them, claw from them. So our new methodology, or our unfortunately not new, but our methodology going back to I guess. What's that, Frederick Douglass?
Okay.
Is the mixing, amalgamate.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna get our piece of the pie. This is what black people doing, amalgamate. And that's how we think we're gonna get our cut. Well, if we just marry in and mix in, but it's like, okay, but by doing that, you take away your identity of who you are by natural nature. And that takes it into a whole nother realm. So, be that as it may, I hope we gave you some concept of what it means, what our system of justice is, what it's all about. I know this is intense conversation, but it's a necessary conversation, and it's a necessary lesson. So I hope it's helped. Anyone have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to contact us. You can contact me at petty@noopooh.org. Also, subscribe. Become a member of NoopooCC.com. Support what we do at NoopooH.org. And
spread the word.
Spread the word.